Hey y'all, I'm Tammy with Collard Valley Cooks, and today we're making the most easy, moist coconut cake you've ever tasted. Let's get started. All right, one of the most important things about making a good coconut cake is making sure you've got a pure white layer because it's just beautiful when you slice into it. Now today I am using a cake mix, and when you make a cake mix white cake, you do not use your egg yellows or yolks, as you guys would probably call it. We called them yellows growing up. But anyway, so we're going to be using the egg whites, not egg yolks in this recipe. We're going to use the box recipe. The only thing we're going to do is add a little bit of coconut extract. Typically, when I do a cake mix, I put all my liquids in and then the container of the mix. And that way, the mix doesn't get stuck to the bottom of the bowl easy. So we're going to be using a cup of water, half cup of cooking oil, and I'm using corn oil. You're going to use a teaspoon of coconut extract. All right, since these are fresh eggs, I'm going to use my hand to catch the yolk. That's the easiest way to do it. And you're going to want 3 egg whites. These are fresh, so even the shell is a little different when you got a fresh egg. Boy, that's quite a difference in the yellow on that one and the yellow in that one for a fresh egg. I think that might be from one of my young chickens. We've got chickens that have just gotten old enough to lay, and I bet that's one of their eggs because the yolk looks so different. All right, 3 egg whites going in. We're going to wash our hands. This is going to be a moist and delicious cake. I'm using cake mixes because I have a lot of them right now. I bought them on sale and they need to be used. If you want to make a good white cake layer from scratch, I have a great recipe that was my mama's and she catered, so it's good. You can go on to our website, click Southern Recipes, then Cakes and Frostings, scroll all the way down to the bottom and choose white cake layers, all right? It's a delicious recipe if you want a good homemade white cake layer. But today we're using a shortcut. And I'm going to show you how easy it is. We've got the cake mix. Since you've got 3 yellows, you can actually make some good old pudding with that if you want to, using one of our recipes as well. Now I'm going to bake these in 8-inch cake pans. This is my little handy dandy hand mixer. And when you're doing a cake mix, it's really easy just to use a hand mixer. Now some of you might say, well, why not just use a coconut supreme cake mix? You can, but they cost more. So if you're like me and you've got the extract at home, I've always got extract, all different flavors, then you can just use a white cake mix and do this. But if you want to buy the coconut supreme, you can. Now I'm going to beat this on a medium speed for a couple of minutes, just like it says on the box. Now we've got 3 cake pans. And I want this to be a good moist coconut cake. We are going to use Baker's coconut. This is not a fresh coconut cake. And I am going to put parchment in the bottom of these pans. And I'm going to try to divide my mix between 3 layers. And it shouldn't take them that long to cook because they won't be real thick since this is a cake mix. And now I use 8-inch layers. If you're going to use a 9-inch layer, I would just do 2 layers, not 3. But if you've got 8-inch pans, most people don't even sell them anymore. but I get mine on Amazon. I think it makes a pretty tall cake. Then you can do 2 layers with a 9-inch or 3 layers with 8-inch. All right. And of course, it's going to be more tasty if it has 3 layers because it's going to have more icing in between. If you want to make a sheet cake with this, of course you can. You do not have to make round layers and ice them. I know it's a little harder for some of you to do that. If you want to put it in a sheet cake pan and ice it in the pan and serve it out of the pan, then be my guest. But just know that it's going to take your cake a lot longer than 20 minutes to cook. If you're going to use a sheet pan, don't open that oven for at least 30 minutes. And it's probably going to take it closer to 40 minutes to get all the way done in the center. All right, just giving you a heads up on that. We're going to try to measure this as much as we can so that we get them kind of equal, okay? Because this is a pretty runny batter. And I'm going to start with 2. And you'll notice I'm not scraping it as I pour it out. And as long as I don't do that for all of them, it should work. Equal it out across the bottom. These are new pans, USA brand. And I'm just trying to level them a little bit. And then we're going to get these in the oven and we're going to cook them until they're done and the toothpick comes out clean. I think it's going to take about 20 minutes. And then we're going to take them out. (350°). And we will see you guys in a few minutes. Don't open that oven for at least 20 minutes. All right, one thing I will tell you about making a white cake. It's really better to cook it down on 325 than 350. Just make sure that you don't get it too brown because that's part of it being beautiful too when you cut it. So as soon as it sets, and I mean as soon as you can touch the top and it spring back, it don't have to be brown for a white layer. You're going to get it out of the oven and let it cool 5 to 10 minutes. Now this one that was in the back will be darker than the other 2 automatically. But let it cool a couple of minutes, 5 minutes or so, and then you're going to flip it upside down on some parchment, and then we'll ice this sucker up. All right, for this cake, we are going to make our homemade buttercream icing, and you'll see down below it tells you how to make peanut butter buttercream, pina colada buttercream, coconut buttercream, chocolate. So we're going to be doing the coconut today for our coconut cake, and we will be using Baker's sweetened flaked coconut. Baker's has the best moist coconut. If you're going to make a coconut cake, I suggest you pay the extra $1 and get the best instead of the store brand. The store brands are never as moist as Baker's, okay? All right, this icing is thinner than a regular buttercream because you're going to put coconut on it. And I don't like for it to be real thick because then it gets too rich to me for a really good coconut cake. It's my favorite icing for any coconut cake, whether it's fresh coconut or flaked coconut. I would not use anything else, really. Now, for a typical buttercream, I would use a cup of butter, but we're going to use cream of coconut. Now, let me talk about this cream of coconut. Cream of coconut is not coconut milk, and you have to find it in the grocery store. You may have to go and ask somebody where to get it. They're going to have it, but you may have to find it, okay? And different grocery stores have it on different aisles, so just look for that. Sometimes they're where the Mexican food is, and sometimes they're where the pie fillings are. You just don't ever know. So we're going to be using a 1/2 cup of butter in this recipe because we'll be using the cream of coconut for the rest of the oils that we typically use in a buttercream. So I'm going to mix up this butter. And now what I tell you to do is open your can of cream of coconut, and you're going to beat it well. Because sometimes they'll have a layer of grease on the top, coconut oil, or they may not. It's according to how fresh it is. But most of the time, there is a layer on the top when you open it, or it could even be down at the bottom. This one, you don't see one. So I just like to tell you guys to open it up, pour it out, and mix it. Now this one doesn't have any hard coconut grease, I guess is what you'd call it. So really I don't have to mix it up. But typically when you open them, they do, and I like to beat it well. This one's a little thinner than the norm. I don't know if I've ever bought this brand before. All right, so we're going to be using 4.5 cups of powdered sugar. It tells you when you make the cream of coconut, you use a 1/2 cup of the cream of coconut. So I'm going to measure this cream of coconut. And I don't know that we can use a whole 1/2 cup because this is really thin. But we'll see. We're going to put in 4.5 cups of powdered sugar. I'm going to go ahead and put in a 1/4 cup of this cream of coconut. And we're going to start adding our powdered sugar. All right, we're going to be using 1.5 tablespoons of evaporated milk or cream, whatever you've got. We're going to put in a dash of salt. So you're just going to want to beat it a couple of minutes and get it nice and fluffy. And it should be thin enough that it's easily spreadable and not thick enough to pipe through a piping bag. So if you need to add a little extra cream of coconut, you can do that. I would add more cream of coconut and not cream, just because the more of that you got in there, the better it tastes. Now everybody's brands are different. If you taste this and it's not coconutty enough, you can always add some coconut extract, but it's really tasty to me, and we're going to use it just like it is. All right, it's time to make the cake and ice it up. I'm going to pour this into here. And of course, if you made a sheet cake, you're just going to ice the top of it with your icing and put your coconut on the top. It's that simple. And I've got my layers. I had them in the freezer, and so they're still frozen in the middle. And you're just going to put a little bit of icing on your cake plate. Put your first layer down. And cake mixes don't have a lot of cake in them. Now, if you make my homemade white layers, they're going to be a lot thicker than this, than what you're going to get out of a cake mix. Okay? So you're going to need more icing and coconut to cover them as well. But now this is just a cake mix, and I like to do this pretty thin because it's really rich. So don't put your icing on there real thick. It's to me, it's not as good. And then you're just going to put some coconut on there. Just like that. Now, this is way better than what you're going to get at the store if you buy coconut cakes at the grocery store. Next layer. And it's easy just to plop icing down on the top. We'll do that this time. And if there's extra, it can just go down the side a little bit. The key to icing a cake is staying on top of the icing and not letting your spatula touch the cake part. And that way, it's less likely to pull it up off the cake and into the icing. The crumbs, that's what I'm talking about. Okay? And this is the last layer. I'm going to tell y'all this. When I worked at Egan's Bakery in Cartersville, and it's so funny because the other day I was talking about it, and one of the Egans actually commented on the post, and she was watching Charlene Egan. Charlene was an angel. Really, she was. And so if you're watching today, Charlene, I sure miss you. You were a joy to work with. And I could ice cake. No kidding. We made 3-layer coconut cakes like this for the holidays, and we sold so many coconut cakes. Now, it was fresh coconut, but it was made like this with homemade white layers and this type of icing, and then we would use the fresh coconut, and I would ice them all day long, and you can see how quickly I can ice a cake. And we would sell them, and that's how many just coconut cakes we sold on Christmas Eve. We worked on Christmas Eve. We would go in super early. Now, if your icing is not thin enough that it's easy to spread, you can wet your spatula and make it easier. And mine really needs to be wet just a little bit. Now, when we were making lots of cakes, we would have a spray bottle. And we would spray our cakes, and that way it was fast. So what you want to do is put the icing too much on the top, and then when you get to the edge, then you've got icing to ice the sides with. And like I said, you're not going to want a lot of icing, so try not to put it on there real thick. Because this is really rich. It's got the cream of coconut in it. And really, you're just trying to make something that the coconut's going to stick to and still be tasty. And like I said, if you need to wet your spatula and it's easier to ice. Or you could just make sure that when you make this icing, you put enough cream of coconut in there that it's nice and thin. I need to get some down at the bottom a little bit. All right, that's all there is to it. Now we're just going to go around the edge. It'll be pretty when we get the coconut on it. I'm transferring a little bit of that around, try to make the cake flatter on the top and level. Okay, and now we're just going to cover it in coconut. And this is the great thing about making a coconut cake at home, is that you get to put plenty of coconut on it. And this is going to be plenty of coconut. And if this were my homemade layers, I really think once I'm done with this, I'll tell you I really think 1 pack would probably be enough. But you want to put it on there thick. Really press it into the sides. Once you go around it once and you know you got plenty of coconut, then just keep going with it. Trying to pile it on. Then you're just going to take your finger and push it off the edges like so. And then we're going to pile it up in the middle. This cake would be really good with the pina colada icing and some pineapple in between the layers. We may do one of those next time. But that's a really pretty coconut cake. Some of my edges, the icing's showing. Make sure that you coat all of the icing good. That's it. That's a good coconut cake. It's super easy, and you shouldn't have any problem finding the ingredients. If for any reason at all you can't find cream of coconut in your local grocery store, then just buy you some coconut extract and use the buttercream recipe and use the coconut extract to give you that coconut flavor in the icing. Okay? And there you have it. The easiest coconut cake in the world that will make everyone smile. We're going to slice into this, and you're going to see why it's so important to have a beautiful white layer when you slice a piece of coconut cake. Remember, you got all that coconut in between those layers to cut through. Lots of coconut on the top. Here we go. Should be snow white. And it is. That's a pretty piece of coconut cake. All right, y'all, it's time to get a bite. And remember, this is flaked coconut, so it's not like fresh coconut. And so it's not real wet, but it is very moist. And so when you ice it, you can tell that that flaked coconut will make the layer kind of come apart, but that's normal. And then you're just going to get a bite. And it should be super moist and delicious and have plenty of coconut flavor. Now that's good. It's good. It is just a coconut cake. And I love coconut cake. Now, a lot of you make the coconut cakes that has the extra like sour cream and different things in them. And they are super delicious and they're super rich. And they're normally made in a sheet cake form. But this is just a standard coconut cake that everybody's going to love. But it is a step up because you're using the cream of coconut and you're making the icing. And boy, is it good. I hope you've enjoyed watching this as much as we're going to enjoy eating it, right? And y'all have a blessed day. We thank you for watching Collard Valley Cooks, where we cook like our mamas did. Bye, y'all. Love ya.